this video, we're going to be looking at how to turn your Essay 2 outline into your final draft. So just like we did with Essay 1, I'm going to be showing you what an outline is going to look like versus what the final version of your essay is going to look like. And we're going to be discussing what to add, any transitions, and anything else you need to know as you're working on your final draft. Okay, so let's get started with the introduction. So this would be an example of what a introduction for your essay 2 outline is going to look like. So as you can see, we have our hook, we have our definition, introduce topic, and thesis. So for your hook, you are allowed to choose any hook that you want. So you might choose to use a quote, you might choose to use a personal story, you could look at an interesting fact, lots of different options, and there is a page that has a bunch of hook options that you can look at that's on our Canvas. Then you're going to have your definition. So this is where you're going to define what an urban legend is. So it's important to choose a definition either from one of our readings or from the dictionary. You can find like an online definition is fine too, and make sure that you cite that. Then you're going to introduce your topic, which basically means that you're going to be narrowing down general urban legends to the specific type of urban legends that we're going to be discussing in this essay. So for this essay, we're going to be looking at college urban legends. So you want to make sure that you're taking the time after you define urban legends as a whole to then narrow down and discuss what type of urban legends we're going to be discussing and how that relates to your general topic. After that, we have our thesis, which is where you're going to tell me what 2 themes of urban legends you're going to be discussing, as well as your 2 research topics. And you're going to want to put those in, 1 to 2 to 3 sentences so that it, makes a good thesis. And I do have templates for all of that in your outline. Okay, so that is going to be what we're looking for with the outline for your introduction. So let's look at the finished version. So we can see here that it's not ridiculously long. I haven't added that much from the outline. The major part that I've added is adding a little bit more to the hook. As you can see here, my hook for my outline was pretty succinct, pretty, short. And for my final draft, I made it longer and added more detail there. So that's definitely something that you want to keep in mind. We want our hook to be interesting. We want it to be memorable. And if it's only like a sentence or two, it's not necessarily going to do that. Okay, so I added to my hook. For my hook, I chose to do like a personal story or personal memories that relate to my topic. So I just said when I was a kid, I used to beg my babysitters to tell me scary stories, whether it's a boogeyman or vampires. I love anything that would send my heart racing and fill my nightmares. As adults, we never really get over our hunger for these stories, and one way we recreate that childhood feeling is by believing and passing on urban legends. So I'm starting with kind of a personal anecdote about what I loved about scary stories as a kid. Then I'm transitioning to my, adult life and what the topic of this essay is going to be, which is going to be urban legend. So I have that all in there. Then I have my definition of what an urban legend is down in the orange here. And then that goes into the yellow, which is where I'm introducing the general topic. So I'm narrowing down urban legends as a whole to specifically college urban legends. So I said urban legends can be found anywhere there is a lot of people and anxiety. So of course, college campuses can have some of the craziest urban legends around. These legends serve to help students connect and to expose real-world fears that students have. So here I'm touching on, the general idea of urban legends, why they would be so common on college campuses, and then also connecting to some of my research topics that I'm going to go over in my thesis statement. Then I have my thesis here. So 2 themes of urban legends that exist on college campuses are cheating and the importance of paying attention. These themes relate to real-world problems that students have, like relying on cheating as a way to cope with stress, which is my first research topic, and feeling pressure to succeed in order to avoid falling behind in classes, which is my second research topic. So make it very clear my 2 themes and my 2 research topics, and that works for this. Okay, so that is going to be your introduction. Next, we're going to take a look at the theme paragraphs. So we have here your very basic theme outline. So we have our topic sentence where I'm going to state what my first theme is going to be. I want to make sure in my topic sentence for my theme paragraphs that I make it clear that these are themes and not my research topics. It's really easy to kind of forget that and just say, one thing that is important to college students is cheating or something like that, and not mentioning that these are themes that are found in urban legends. These are not just topics that we're talking about randomly. So make sure that in your topic sentence you use the words theme commonly found in college urban legends or something along those lines, and then state what that theme is. And then for my story support, I have my two stories chosen that I'm going to use to support that this is a real theme that exists on college campuses. These should be two stories from the list that we came up with as a class. So stories either from the Major and Bray article, from the Zhao article, or from some of the online urban legends that I listed or that you've talked to me about ahead of time and gotten permission to use. So for my story support one, I'm using the student who plagiarized their Shakespeare essay. So I have here the citation, so Major and Bray 246. And then for the second story, I have the students trick their professor into letting them retake a test after missing the first exam because of a party. This is just an online story. And the page where it comes from is called College Urban Legends. If there is a author for this story, I would include the author here. Because there is not, there's just a title of like the web page. That's what I'm going to put in my parenthetical here. But if there's an author, always do that. Never do like the title or the publication. It's always the author if you've got one, which is why I use Major and Bray here. Okay, so I got my topic sentence. It states my theme. Then I have my two stories. So for an outline, this is totally fine. It's very short and succinct, but I can always add more detail in my final draft. So if this is what your outline looks like, that's fine, but you are going to need to add a lot more detail to your stories. So let me show you what the final draft looks like. Okay, so as you can see, I've added a lot of information here. So in the red here, we have the topic sentence, and that's basically the same. I haven't changed it. Then in the orange, we have the first story. So it's the same story that I chose in my outline, but what I've done is added enough detail so that if my reader has never heard this story before, they can understand the important plot points of the story. So that's going to be something that you are going to have to do for the two stories that you've chosen. And I guess actually it's four stories you've chosen because you have two of these paragraphs, but you get what I mean. So for the two stories that you've chosen for each of your two theme paragraphs, you're going to want to give enough detail that if I've never heard this story before, I understand what is happening. So this might require you to paraphrase, meaning that you're putting the story in your own words and then putting a citation at the end. It might mean that you want to quote part of the story, so quote word for word the story and put quotation marks around it, and also make sure that you put a citation, or you might do a mix of the two. So that's totally fine. As long as you're citing your sources, it's fine however you want to do it, paraphrasing or quoting or both. Just make sure that you are doing it properly. So if you're going to put quotations marks around any sort of words, they need to be direct quotes from the original article. If you don't put quotes around it, then I'm expecting you to put it in your own words and to not copy directly from the article. So choose what you prefer and just make sure that you are citing it correctly. Okay, so I have my first story here. Then after that story, I want a sentence or two where you discuss how that story fits in with your chosen theme. So some of the times it's going to be pretty obvious, but either way, I want you to make sure that you're explaining. So if my theme is students that cheat to get through college, I'm going to want to look at how both of these stories depict cheating differently. So story one depicts cheating one way, and story two might also depict cheating, but in a different way. So in this case, my story one is about the student who plagiarized their Shakespeare essay. So in this story, it serves an example of how cheating is sometimes depicted as a positive thing in these legends, which can send the wrong message to students. So because the student in this story gets away with cheating and in fact gets an A because of it, technically they got away with it, right? Like there was no consequences for them cheating on that paper. So that's kind of an interesting message that that story sends. On the other hand, in the second story, where we have the two students that skip their exam, lie to their teacher, and then get caught in their lie because they didn't, get their story straight, this would be an example of students not getting away with cheating. So that's what I did in my analysis. Unlike the first story, this one sees the students being punished for their lies. Both stories depict cheating as a common part of college life. So I've talked about how both of these stories represent my theme, and then as well as maybe what some of these stories have in common, which is that regardless of the consequences to the cheating, it does make the point that cheating is definitely something that happens in college, at least according to these stories. So that's what I'm going to do for my theme paragraphs. So make sure that you are doing the same thing. So for both of your stories, make sure you're adding enough detail so that I understand the major plot points. Make sure that you are adding after both story at least a sentence or two of analysis where you're talking about how each of the stories represents your theme differently, as well as maybe if there's anything in common, you can talk about that as well. And that's going to be your theme paragraphs, and you're going to have two of those. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So this is going to be a research paragraph. So you are going to end up having two theme paragraphs, but I didn't want to go over two because it's going to be the same thing twice. So you get the idea. So next we're going to go on to the research paragraphs. So after your two theme paragraphs, you're going to have your two research paragraphs. So once again, we are starting with the outline version of this paragraph. So my topic sentence. So for the topic sentence, you want to restate what theme this research topic is based on. So in this case, my theme was cheating, and then my topic is how common cheating actually is. So I want to make sure to mention both of those things in my topic sentence. So as we take a closer look at the theme of cheating, it is worth considering how common cheating actually is. So to the point, very clear what I'm going to be talking about. I don't get too, complicated with it. You can have a more complicated topic sentence if you want, but it's also okay to have a really simple one as long as you're making it very clear what you're going to be talking about, which I did here. Then after my topic sentence, I have my two research support. So you are likely kind of have something like this where you have the name of the article, the name of the author, and then either the quote or the general paraphrase of the information that you want to use. So if you don't have that, I would go find the articles and write that information down because it's going to make the next step a lot easier. So the name of the article, the name of the author, and the quote that you're going to be using. Make sure that you have both of those for two of your research support for both of your message paragraphs. So for my research support one, I have this article from Educational Psychology Review Journal. Derek Bok, president of Harvard University, has found some patterns in the people who are most likely to cheat. And then here you're going to see a parenthetical citation that does not match the person that I've mentioned. So the reason this is because I have used a secondary source to talk about a primary research. So Derek Bok did this research, and that's going to be the research that I'm going to be discussing. However, I didn't have access to the actual article itself. So instead, I found this article by Rest that kind of goes over the general findings of the research and then just kind of talks about them. So because of that, I kind of have a citation within a citation. So I'm citing the article that I'm going to be using as well as giving credit to the person who did the research. You don't have to necessarily do this, but if you do find that your article written by one person is citing a lot of information by an article written by another person, it's always a good idea to make sure that you're giving everyone credit. However, in terms of MLA, as long as you're citing that source that you're quoting, that's fine. So just keep that in mind. But in this case, where you do have kind of one author that's talking about another author, the easiest way of handling it is just mentioning both of them. Okay, so going back to my actual quote. So you're going to notice there aren't any quotation marks around this, and that's because the article itself was really complex and long, and there really weren't any quotes that I could pull that wouldn't take like a whole paragraph. So what I did is I just read the article and then I put the findings in my own words. So I just wrote that Bok points out the higher a student's educational level, the lower chance of them cheating. However, the lower the status of a student's education, the higher chance they were likely willing to cheat. So this was this kind of really long article and research that was done where it was studying cheating prevalence in students from like freshman year to like senior year and then into graduate school. And that was basically its findings, is that the longer that you're in college, the less likely you are to cheat. And obviously, on the other side, the shorter time you've been in college, the more likely you are to cheat. So that would be that research. So I decided to just put it in my own words, but if you want to quote it, you can also do that. And then for my second research support, I again have the article or the author's name, so Philip A. Pecorino. And for this one, I did quote it. So he lists several research studies that show, quote, the rate of students who admit to cheating at least once in their college careers had held steady at somewhere around 75% since the first major survey on cheating in higher education in 1963. Okay, so that's a lot of information. We're definitely going to talk about that in the essay. But for now, I just have, what I need. So topic sentence and my true research. So once we're ready to actually do the final draft, we're going to be adding a lot more analysis to this. So let me show you what I did. Okay, so you can see here that this is quite a long paragraph, and that's okay. I'm expecting your research paragraphs to be longer than your theme paragraphs because you're going to be working with a lot more information and you're going to want to be adding, your own analysis and your own thoughts on, what this information means. So it's totally okay if your research paragraphs are a little bit longer. I'd prefer it that way. That way you have plenty of space to be able to do your own analysis. So let me show you what we have here. So I have my topic sentence up at the top. It looks just the same. I haven't changed anything. And then I have here kind of introducing my first support research. So I have all the information. I did add a little bit of a transition, so I'm not just jumping into a quote, that I'm actually discussing what the quote is going to go over. So I said, so if my topic sentence says, we take a closer look at the theme of cheating, it is worth considering how common cheating actually is. There is no correlation as to why specific students cheat more than others. According to the Educational Psychology Review journal, Derek Bok, president of Harvard University, has found some patterns in the people that are most likely to cheat. Again, I have that citation for the secondary article that I had. Bach points out that the higher a student's educational level, the lower chance of them cheating. However, the lower the status of a student's education, the higher chance they are willing to cheat. Okay, so that is my quote. And then next, I'm going to analyze this information. So why does it matter? How can we use this information to understand my research topic more? So if my research topic is how common is cheating, how can this information help us to understand the issue? So for my analysis, I said this shows that cheating seems to be linked to experience and age. The longer you are in college, the less likely you're going to risk getting caught. This makes sense in terms of risk benefit. As students get further into their studies, they are more experienced learners and are less likely to benefit from cheating. So what I've done is kind of use my general knowledge and my general experience to come up with some theories of why this might be. So even though the data itself doesn't explain why people who are in college longer cheat less, I can kind of use my general experience as a college student to surmise why that might be. And I think that if most of us kind of think about that logically, it would make sense. The longer you're in college, the less likely you're going to feel that desperation to cheat because you've been in college that long. It means that you've probably gotten some study skills, you've gotten more confidence, you know about the resources that are available, and also you're less likely to be taking classes that you absolutely hate. The longer you're in college, the more control you have over your course load. So you're less likely to be taking a class that's completely above your understanding. And so you're not going to be as likely to want to risk cheating. So that's what I kind of did for my analysis. So it's not that I made something up or that I'm, putting idea or words into the author's mouth or anything like that. I'm using the information, but I'm adding my own personal observations and experiences to try to understand why these data points might exist. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. So to transition to my next study, I just kind of add a little sentence here. So how often do students actually cheat? The data suggests the answer is a lot. In an article written by Philip A. Pecorino, he lists several research studies that show, quote, the rate of students who admit to cheating at least once in their college careers has held steady at somewhere around 75%. And they say that it's been that way since 1963, which is, yeah, a very long time. Okay, so for my analysis for this particular quote, what I want to do is consider the information above and also consider the information that the quote is actually saying. So it's really easy to read this quote, the 75%, and to assume that everyone is cheating all of the time, right? 75% is a large number that can make it seem like no one is actually studying in college, right? Like everyone's just cheating. But what this information is telling us isn't that everyone is cheating all the time. It's just saying that the vast majority of people will cheat once. That's really all it's saying. And I'm going to guess that based off the information above here, that they probably did it in their freshman or maybe their sophomore year of college. And they probably stopped after that because, the risk benefit didn't really work for them. So that's what I want to kind of talk about in terms of this quote, that yes, while it does show that 100% cheating is an issue in college, it does not tell us that everyone is cheating all the time. It's just saying that a lot of people will attempt cheating. And, if the consequences are great enough, or if, it just ends up not really working for them, they're probably going to stop because that's what we kind of learned from the information above. And it's okay to do that, to kind of compare and contrast information from multiple sources in order to come to a better understanding of the issue. That's why we're doing this in the first place. Okay, so that would be my analysis of this second quote here. And then what I did after that is I actually added a little bit more from the Pecorino article because I found that after going through and analyzing my two quotes, I feel like it didn't really answer the question, which is, how common is cheating? And then the follow-up question to that would be like, why do people cheat? Like, what's the reason that they do it? So what I did is I just went back to the Pecorino article and kind of got a quote from them where it talks about some of the reasons why people cheat, just to kind of make my paragraph a little bit more well balanced and making sure that's actually answering the question that I set out to answer. So what I did here is I said, Pecorino goes on to explain the reasons for cheating, especially in four-year colleges. Some of the reasons can include being stressed, competition with other students, or being overwhelmed with the constant amount of work that has to be done in such a short amount of time. Students also can be overly ambitious and are fearless of the consequences of ruining their own academic integrity. Okay, so basically it kind of lists a bunch of reasons why people might cheat. And then I just ended it with saying all of this data supports the idea that cheating is present on college campuses, which I definitely think it does, right? All of these quotes do support the idea that cheating does happen, but that it may not be a long-term issue or that it may not be caused by a lack of experience rather than a need to cheat the system, or that it may be caused by a lack of experience rather than a need to cheat the system. The reason I added that is because I found that a lot of the cheating stories that we get in urban legends are usually kind of kind of show this like student who doesn't care about, consequences and doesn't care about doing the wrong thing and is just trying to like cheat the system or to get one over on their teachers. And while I think that, of course, that probably does happen, I think that for the vast majority of people who choose to cheat, it's probably out of desperation and fear rather than wanting to like cheat the system or thinking that they're too good for the system. I think a lot of the time it's just people feeling desperate and thinking, well, if I don't do this, I'm going to fail anyway. I might as well take the risk. And I think that's important to keep note of because demonizing people for breaking the rules and not taking the time to understand why they might be doing it doesn't help us solve the problem. So that's what I wanted to kind of add to the end of this paragraph. So hopefully you found this helpful. So now it's time for you to turn your own outlines into your final draft. I have a link to all of these slides under this video, so you can take a look at them if you want. So yeah, just make sure that you have your introduction, that you have your two theme paragraphs, and your two research paragraphs, and then your conclusion, and then you should be all good from there. So I'm looking forward to seeing your final drafts, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye.